Hello.
Hi, how are you doing
Hi.
this week?
I'm good. It's been a busy week. I've got like a million different projects and different phases going on right now, so my brain's all over the place.
That's a fun place to be though when you're like at things that are staggered. So it's like you can kind of like dip into
Editing
this.
one,
Yeah.
finishing touches on one, different
Oh yeah.
ones going off to different people for edits and yeah,
Yes.
writing something, so yeah,
Oh God,
it's
I'm in
good.
the same place. As you're saying, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. All of those things. Like same thing, like writing one,
Doing all the things.
editing one, getting one ready to like go out soon and putting an outline together for another. And yeah, it's
Do
like
you ever have your deadlines all kind of align at
2022,
once? Do
20
you
last
like,
year. Like
yeah.
that was last year. Like this year, I don't think they will, but I'm not, don't hold me to that because what I've found is where I can put things on a calendar, I need to actually really look at like how to juggle them so they work. It's like space it out correctly. So I'm like, yeah, I got it on the calendar. I've got all 10 things due that day. It's cool. It's cool.
Well, speaking of today's topic, we're talking about
Mm,
mental health,
yeah, we
talking about being
are.
stressed out and all over the place. But
Yes.
we're talking about mental health as it pertains to social media. We should say also no new patrons this week. And yeah, and thank you everyone who's on our Patreon. We love working with you.
Yeah. Thank you.
But yes, this is, one of the reasons we started sustainable socials and why we now call it sustainable socials is
Yeah.
because of this whole topic of mental health in social media.
Yeah. And it's such a big topic. I mean, you hear since about 2018, I can remember like people started talking about, what social media was doing. Cause I think that was about the time that folks started feeling um, more anxiety, more depression. They started to kind of equate it to social media and probably Twitter in particular. I feel like I
Mhm.
you hear a lot about Twitter because it's a dumpster fire.
As well as Facebook. I
Yeah.
mean, at the time back then, yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah. And 2018 was just like a horrible year of all kind of politics. You had people that were coming in and out, like, and it's just it was an angry spot for a while, but it's now just revved up into this whole other machine,
Mhm.
where it's got a lot of positive benefits, but the negative ones are pretty heavy.
Mhm.
And if you don't have the right tools, maybe the right support, the right people around you, you don't have the right thought process with it.
And to be aware of like the mechanisms at play, right? Because I feel like when I grew up, there were conversations that I'd have with my parents about marketing, about like, you see what they're saying here? They're trying to sell you this thing, they're trying to sell you that thing, like this commercial on TV of two people running in slow motion and being happy and all of these things is selling you a credit card,
Yes.
like, and so they made you aware of like these tips and tricks and things that they use to try and get you in marketing. But I feel like the conversation now that we need to be having with our kids is how social media is used to try and get you hooked on it and make you feel a certain way. Like the way things are curated to show to people, it's not necessarily intentionally skewing towards negative things. It's skewing towards things that keep people on platform the longest, right? Because the longer you're using that platform, the more advertising they can have sold against that time, right? So the whole point is to show you things that will be the most addicting, the most enjoyable to watch, which actually they found interestingly the most enjoyable content for people to watch that lights up the kind of like biggest pleasure center in their brain is not you like the spicy content or funny content that you would think. It's the part of your brain that stimulates mild outrage.
Oh, I'm over here going cat videos. Like,
And
actually the
once you
opposite.
know that, there's some fascinating books on it that we can link in the show notes. But once you're aware of that, once you're aware of the fact that that is the thing that keeps people the most hooked on social media, you
Yeah.
start spotting it. You
Yes.
start spotting the content, and you start spotting the content creators who start creating more and more of that content because it gets people more and more invested in what they're making.
Yep.
And so it's one of those things to like that I'm definitely going to be talking a lot with my kids about, is to be looking out for what kind of content is being showed to you and why, and basically the mechanisms behind it. There's you have some like research on the like mental health side of things, but
Yeah.
one of the things in the design of social media that I think leads really well into this, actually back in the day there were a lot more like open about what they were trying to do with social media before they realized how negative it looked. But you can find like videos and things of like the early days of Facebook and how they were designing people and how they wanted them to feel in these kind of engagement workshops that all of these tech bros that ended up creating a lot of these social platforms did. And one of the things they would say is like, okay, we have this person we want to get on Facebook, to use it as a place to connect with people, right? And find friends. And so then we're going to satisfy that need a little bit, but we always want her to feel a little bit lacking. Like it's not quite doing what she wants it to do. So she reaches for Facebook more often in the hopes that she will get more of it, until it becomes the place that she goes to first before picking up her phone and calling a friend, or like going out to a movie with a friend. She goes on Facebook first to meet that need. And we never completely give it to her so that she'll keep coming back. And if you sit with
Brilliant.
that for a minute and think about how that's how most social media is designed, is to make you always feel like a little bit lacking.
Yes.
Um, Once you realize that, it's a lot less powerful on you.
Yes. Yes.
Once you know that's what's happening, you're less kind of like controlled by that pressure. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a switch you have to flip and know that going in to your social media app that you are choosing at the time. Because yeah, just when we decided we were going to talk about this on the show, I got online and started trying to dig up. So I was like, there's got to be something long term we can look at for how, research since 2004 ish,
Mm.
whenever Facebook began back in the day. But with it being such new technology, what I found through helpguide.org was that there isn't any research yet for the long-term consequences. But that tells me it's coming, because I'm finding tons of studies online, like the one from the National Institute of Health in the United States that I'm actually in the middle of reading right now, which has a lot of, gets down to the nitty-gritty of what it does as far as the studies around a link from heavy social media use to that increased risk of depression, anxiety, loneliness, self-harm, and even suicidal thoughts. So it's like it's all within this algorithm, the way people they're setting things up, and then we as humans, I mean, just our little psyches, we're just bending under the pressure of taking on. And I feel for anybody out there that, relates as an empath and is super sensitive in this world. I've got a
Mm.
couple of those friends that they cannot even dip near, they refuse social media. They go into Instagram or Pinterest. They're very careful. It is only pretty content, because they literally can't take it. It kills
Yeah.
their soul and where they
I'm that
are.
way with TikTok. Like I'm very conscious to not watch anything on my For You page that's like um particularly like anything super upsetting with like, children or animals, or like every once in a while you'll have like more newsish items and things, and it's like that sort of stuff I want to read. I don't want to like watch in TikTok. Like that's not the place where I would rather like read it on a news site than have it in my For You page. And so I'm very, very conscious of like saying not interested on those videos and not watching those videos, and keeping my feed very curated to BookTok and to like funny videos and joyful things, because that like how quickly you can just have your mental health sucked up in
Yeah.
that negativity. And the more you watch and engage, even in a horrified way, with that
Mhm.
content, the more of it is going to be shown to you, until you feel like everything is awful all the time. And it's because you've engaged with the content to the point that it keeps showing it to you.
Yeah, it's like the app knows they're seeing what the watch time what you're showing them with watch time. You serve that up to them. So they're going, wow, this person opens up and they want to see these horrible things pop up all the time. So we'll just keep giving it to them.
Yeah.
And no, like if it's horrible, like that's that not interested, being able to hold your finger on the screen of your phone and click not interested when something comes up, because every now and then it will happen. You'll have your feed where you're happy, but guaranteed you'll be trucking along fabulously for 6 to 8 weeks. There'll be a change in the back end of whatever app it is.
Mhm.
And something like TikTok, you're going to suddenly get served other things that they'll think you know, based on something you've done. Well, maybe you want to look at this now. Just
Yeah.
not interested. Click off of it and keep it so you are in your
Keep
happy
nudging
place.
you towards it, because
Yeah.
that's the content that normally gets the most views and the most engagement. So it's going to keep trying to feed it to you. And you have to, yeah, you have to be very self-conscious of like, oh, this is what they're trying to do. You know, like you have to be aware of what is happening and go, nope, not today, not happening. This is
Yeah.
not, this is my happy place. I'm going to continue to make it that way. Like I will get my information from other sources about these things. I would
Yeah.
rather go to like the actual like activists or sites or different places to like news articles to get this stuff. I'm keeping this place for these things. This is the content I enjoy making, it's the content I enjoy watching, and having that, you know, what is and isn't okay for you specifically and your boundaries for your mental health. And that will be different for different people. But having that in your mind is really important when you that content starts popping up, is going like, is this like helping or hindering my mental health?
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes you probably see content that makes you feel amazing, you know, and is actually like buoying you.
Yeah.
So it's important to be thinking about that, just as you see content being fed to you, what is it doing to your mental health? You know.
Yeah, I mean, because that's all of those things that I was talking about from the different things that I've researched, I was looking up, you know, it comes down to where it makes people feel inadequate. There's the FOMO and there's the isolation. And I think, you know, we can see where it makes people feel inadequate all the time. I've been there. I think you've been there. We have friends that have been there. And then, but
Mm-hmm.
you have to tell yourself when you see that, like something that comes up that makes you feel inadequate, this is what it's trained to do. It's to show you
Yeah,
these things that you feel like you might be, you know, going into that fear of missing out that you might be missing out on. But
I
that
think
is
as
what it's
authors, we
doing.
get that all the time, don't we? We see
We do.
someone like, I'll see people who write in completely different genres than me, and I'm like, ooh, they're doing that thing, like, or
Yeah.
they're doing a Kickstarter. I need to do a
I
Kickstarter, you
know,
know, like it's just like,
yeah.
no, you don't.
They're doing it
Stop
for
it. Like
fun.
the
Oh my
FOMO
God.
of like, ooh, cool, look, they did this like special print edition. I need to do a special print edition. It's like,
Yes.
no, you don't.
I like the oh my God, and, like, the rabbit hole you fall into, like, I actually observe myself right now when I go into, say, Facebook, because it always starts out, I'm gonna go into Facebook for a thing, for this one
Mhm.
thing, and the next thing I know, I will have closed Facebook, I've closed the app or my computer, I've gotten up, I've walked away, and I never even looked for the thing I sat
Yeah.
down to do
Yeah.
because I got into Facebook, and couple of
Mhm.
friends post will come up and maybe I'm like, oh yay, maybe like, oh, I actually snoozed you. I don't want to see you anymore. Or then like something comes up like an author thing that I'm like, oh, well, now I need to deep dive because this person's talking about this book bundle. Well, who else is doing a book bundle? And the next thing I know, Nosy Rosie here is like trying to figure out like maybe I should be doing like it is like a
Yeah.
FOMO until I talk myself down and I'm like, okay, wait, no. You just walk away, like stick to your lane, Anne. Just stick to your
Yeah.
lane.
Maybe I should recover my books. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Should I do
I know.
keywords?
It's
Yeah.
it's a problem. And it's like, and also when you're seeing a feed of people, like you might be seeing their that one big thing they're doing that year. But
Yeah.
when you're friends with thousands and thousands of people, there's going to be multiple people doing one big thing
Yes.
every day.
Yes.
And so it feels like everybody is just like constantly, yeah, like doing all the tiny cool things, but actually it's just, you know, like people share that stuff, you know. But yeah, I think that's something that all authors struggle with, is the kind of comparisonitis a little bit, you know.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
do think social media can make that harder. And at some point I do think you just go like, I've got a bunch of exciting things happening and I'm just going to do those things. But it is hard with social media, that FOMO and that feeling of like lacking and like, well, I'm not doing that and that and that and that and that and that, you know, and all of those
Yeah.
other things. So
But there
yeah.
is like the joy-mo of it all, the joy of missing out. Like when I
Yes.
started to, because
I'm
I am a
so glad I
person.
don't have a Kickstarter to think about right
I
now.
know, same here, because in the same moment that I'm like, yes, let's do it. And I will go shiny object full force into it. And about 24 hours after making it, I've made the statement, I've done the announcement, I'm going to do the things. Then I'm like, what have I done? Like, what I've just like reacted, like it just done this thing. But yeah, like I'd rather miss out at this point and just kind of be more into it and focus on my projects and the things that I'm working on, because a lot of it for me too has come down to, this is a year of mental health for me, in a way of like looking at what didn't work last year and making it work and be sustainable this year, because I want longevity. I want longevity. And I still want to do social media. I still want to do writing. I still want to do these things, but I want to be doing it smart and at a really nice
Mhm.
pace. Not
Yeah,
myself.
sustainably. I mean, this is how I kind of came into this deep dive around the effects of social media and mental health, because I liked being on social media. It was good for my business, obviously, to be on social media. And but I was struggling massively with it when I started off, because I didn't have any boundaries. I didn't have any sense of like where when to like say no to things, or when to, like not
Draw a
engage with
line in
stuff.
it.
And you're just kind of bearing witness to everybody's like trauma constantly and things,
Yeah.
because you feel like you need to, like that's doing anything for anyone. And it just is like, you get to a point where you can get so riled up, and especially I think as introverts, like especially a lot of us creatives, we don't handle attention very well. Like,
Yeah.
having thousands of people commenting on your videos or watching the things that you're doing or interacting with you, even when it's positive, can be like very overwhelming if you're not prepared for it and you don't have some like healthy boundaries in place and know how to deal with like negative comments, or like people who, like even when it's all positive, it's kind of overwhelming, but then you get like negative comments and things too. Sometimes you can't get away from people's opinions of you, even if you really try to stay out of those spaces,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
it's kind of like this minefield if you're not prepared for it, if you don't have like a good friend group who you can talk to about it, talk to about how social media is making you feel, or journaling, or like have some sort of positive mindset strategies in place.
Yeah.
It can definitely, like I was like kind of like having panic attacks and on the verge of tears constantly, and just being like, I want to be doing this, I like doing this, but this is not how I want to feel doing this ongoing. And from then on, it was all about like sustainability, like how can I keep being on social media in a way that doesn't burn me out and doesn't make me feel like this, like, because this
Yeah.
it can't keep going the way it is. And from then on, I was like on a mission, on a quest to find better strategies for myself and to be really strict with myself about not like indulging in those like negative mental health habits,
Yeah.
because I knew how quickly I could just kind of backslide into bad mental health spaces with social media if I wasn't like on top of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Now that's when because then it's like, okay,
Mhm.
you can see it coming, or you know that it could happen. So you put into place those boundaries around you. It's like a being padded to take care. It's like 7 o'clock at night, I try to put my phone on the coffee table. I take my foot usually and kick it across the table. So I really have to, I get lazy after 7. I will then have to sit up and do a crunch to like reach over to get the phone, like be physical.
Ooh. There was this fascinating study talking about like putting your phone aside, that showed that how you behave on social media follows you outside of the time you're on your phone. So they
Mm.
took people who were generally very optimistic and not very like negative online, and they gave them like these kind of um uh, outragey, inciting sort of comments about things that they knew would be very popular and
Yeah.
get a lot of attention, and had them, I think it was on Twitter that they did this, had them tweet it, and they started getting more attention for these things. And so then over the course of like several weeks, they on their own started creating more and more of this kind of hot take content to get more attention, to get more views. They started being more prone to outrage in their social media. And then they came back after like a certain amount of time and studied how they were outside of their phone, like with their family, at work and things like that. And they were much more prone to outrage in their family relationships, in their workspace, than they were prior to this experiment. So what it was showing was how you are showing up online is how it affects how you treat people outside of it. So if you're taking in a lot of very like aggressive content, very like vitriolic content, like a lot of like that sort of stuff, that you can't turn it off when you put your phone down. Like it comes with you and it starts to manifest in your relationships. Uh, so it's very important to like bear that in mind. If you think like, well, I can kind of be a troll online and I can turn it
Right.
off at the end of the day. Or
Yeah.
I can be this way, but then like stop being that way, you know. But like the stuff you consume and the stuff you put out is going to manifest itself in the rest of your life as well, even if you very consciously try not to. So it's
Yeah.
just very important that you're making content that and consuming content that aligns with how you want to show up in your life and everywhere else, you know, in the world. So keep that in mind, you know.
Oh, I think that's the perfect spot to end this today. And you guys, we're
We
going
have
to
a
be,
lot more to say about this, which is why we're going to be doing a lot more cool things around this
yeah.
topic in the future. But it was a good starter into the world of mental health
Yes.
and social media. And yeah, and I would love to know other people's thoughts on this. And to anyone listening right now, if they want to email us or comment on YouTube about how social media has affected them and their mental health and anything that they've gone through with it, anything they've noticed or are aware of. Yeah, that would be really fascinating to hear.
Yeah, and there's something that you had mentioned at the top of the episode, and these two links that I have, we'll make sure that we have them in the show notes. If you can hear this noise behind me, my dog is making himself home in his beanbag. My husband threw the beanbag in here. He's just see George behind me, just like
Dogs are very good for our mental health.
he definitely he makes me laugh every
He's
day. Like
one of
when
our strategies.
yeah, it's like if you've got cats or dogs and you're having a hard day, especially with social media, go hug them, hug your
Yeah.
family. But we'll put some links down in the show notes and see if we can find some other information just to share with you. But just I think that definitely remember, like, go back and listen to this again. Listen to some of the points that AK's brought up, you guys. I mean, it's and we'll be
And
back
just
with a
try
lot more
carrying
of
it
those.
around in the back of your mind as a thought to be aware of. Like as you're going about day to day posting content online and things, just have it floating around there. See what you notice, you know. I feel like this is a conversation we're going to start having more and more. And it's something that I want people to start being like more conscious of in themselves.
Yeah, definitely. And I have a feeling that we know that we have a lot more coming, everybody listening. So just know that every month you'll definitely be getting some type of a conversation about mental health from us. And next month we're hoping to have a special guest on here with us. So yeah, very excited.
Yes.
That's us.
All right. Well, we will see you next week.